My name is Buyani Zwane. I originate from Umhlabiyalingane in northern KwaZulu-Natal. I love matters to do with leadership. So everywhere I go, I check what's happening in terms of how we lead and how we make things happen for the good of many. Nothing really happens without humans. Very often we talk about human beings in CEO circles and also in positions of political leadership. We say the people are most important asset. So if we're talking asset, we must be talking capital. We're wanting to be able to arrive at levels that are beyond what has been set up. Too often we have many resources that remain untouched, untapped, as well as they could be. And as a result of that, we actually are underemploying people that have been gifted the opportunity of leading. We often say to ourselves that we do not have charge over people. We have charge with people. We engage with people in order to get to greater heights. And that's what optimization would do. I often make reference to my cousin, Albert Einstein, who says the significant problems we face today cannot be solved at the same level of thinking we were at when we created them. So if we are unaware of the way in which we think, we obviously are going to be doing things that are sometimes going to be instinctive, other times they're just going to be detrimental even to ourselves. Culture as a word also has its roots from where we talk to agriculture, because there is a working of things inside an organization. Often we also make reference to culture as something that is the smell of an organization. Others would talk about it as being the sight of the organization. But I think more and more, the sense of smell tells a lot more about an organization and what we could call the culture, because it then gets to bring to our attention what is attractive, which means it gets to be able to bring to it as an organization the best in talent, the best in industry, the best in sector, the best that want to give the very best of themselves, not just for the municipality that they're involved in, but go beyond the district, go beyond the province, go beyond the nation, go into the continent and go into the globe, with an understanding that there's an ability for you and I to cause a positive dent in human history. And the municipal environment affords us a chance to take care of one simple thing, which is to serve. All human beings, as leaders in particular, should adopt that service is the rent we pay for the privilege of living. And the service experience that people go through gives them hope or leaves them desperate and destitute. Maybe it's just important to be able to think about the fact that optimization in and of itself emanates from the understanding that we can still get efficiencies out of the resources we have. We can squeeze a lot more of the lemon and be able to have something we can use for a lemon meringue cake. What I'm really coming to is that human beings and organizations are systems. And what becomes important is to create an alignment within the systems. I often make reference to the fact that not many people are conscious of how many times they blink their eyes in a minute. Not many people would be able to tell you how many times they breathe in and out in a minute. A few people will be able to tell you how many times their heart beats in a minute. But these things are happening by themselves because the system is working. When the system is not working, you find you are called upon to breathe harder because you're needing to be able to give the lungs a new push. So in order for a system to function well, it needs to be aligned. If it's not, it is diseased. That disease is translated into disease. And therefore, we want to be able to make sure that we can diagnose where the faults may be and go to the root cause of that fault. And when we've discovered that, we bring it through and say, how can we get the most out of this? And the fruits will come when we optimize what's available to us, when we create an environment wherein people can be truly themselves. An orange tree would be able to produce oranges. You can't expect apples out of it. Therefore, we need to be looking into the people we've got inside the organization and say, can we help them to be authentic and be genuine and be themselves? And when they do share whatever it is that they are struggling with, it's not going to be held against them. They will still be able to be truthfully looking up to the leadership and say, help me to build this expertise. Help me to build this knowledge so that I can apply and be better. We come to appreciate that one is too small a number to make an impact, but 1 and 1 can actually translate into 3 and not 2 because we're creating synergy. System optimization in and of itself, therefore, helps us to get to a point where we maximize the return out of what it is we've put in as an investment. The beginning point is going to be one that says we are spirit before we're physical. And so often we say that leaders that have a way of getting into us are the ones that inspire us. And spirit has a connection to conscience. And our ability to connect to our conscience helps us to be able to notice when we are doing things that are harmful to others and to ourselves. It only happens when we are in tune. We are in tune with the environment around ourselves, but more in tune with the inner person. In a municipal environment and in most environments where people are either buying a product or a service, we bring a solution. And it's a solution that is operating on at least 4 fronts. The first front is it is something that people really need. That's the first front. And therefore, we need to understand what are the core needs in the environment within which we operate. Not necessarily the wants, but the needs. Second, we got to be able to look into the affordability of that. Would people be prepared to pay for this particular service or product that we're presenting? And in between that, there is a sense of, there is value I am extracting out of my purchase of this that is fulfilling the need. The third element for consideration is that, is it something that we can unleash the very best in the other person? So for argument's sake, somebody takes and they buy a piece of clothing. It serves a particular need of covering the body, but then it also may become a fashion statement. So it unleashes something about them. But also you find that people behave differently depending on how they're clad themselves. So you find that when they're all relaxed and they're on casual, the demeanor goes in the same direction. When they're out there in a formal look, they behave also in a different manner. So it becomes important to be able to ask the question, does this thing release the best in the person? Which then will talk to the issue of talent. And we'll look into that in terms of leadership and human capital optimization. The fourth element is about the love that's there for that which the person is seeking. So in a community environment, in a local government environment, we got to be able to ignite the passion for the city, for the district, for the town, for the locale in which people are. It's got to be a sense of pride that this is where I belong. So there are those elements that we need to be able to bring into the way in which we engage, particularly as leaders, but also as ordinary citizens. We need to be displaying that what we do is of value. What we do is something that we would part with top rand for. This is something that unleashes the best in us. This is something that we love. It's actually working with two things. Sometimes people look at leadership and say it is taught, whereas we also say that leadership is caught. So there are two elements. There's an element of somebody goes through a training program, and we talk to the core competencies that one needs to be able to go through. And we can look into it. And I mean, the folk at the World Economic Forum are already telling us some of the key competencies we need to have by 2025. They're telling us we've got to be highly analytical in our thinking. We need to be highly innovative. We need to be active in learning. But there's a part that is leadership is caught. How I behave speaks a lot more about what it is that I treasure and who I am when no one is watching. Because we can put some facades with the greatest of ease. We always say this in the legal environment, for instance, we're seeking out the credibility of a witness on a witness stand. And we'll be asking questions that are a combination of two things: competence on one side and character on the other. At a competence level, what we're going to be looking for are capabilities. Is this person capable of doing what is expected of them, what they've been employed for, something that they signed the employment contract on? That's the first point. Then we go into the character element. We say, do they have the integrity to live up to the promise that they make so that their word aligns with their actions? And that's the modeling that becomes important. The third thing that comes through, or second in terms of character, is about intent. What is the agenda behind my action? I could be out there leading in a manner that says people need to fear me. I could be leading in a manner that says people need to bow when I show up. I could be leading in a manner that says, take my instruction and never question why I'm doing it. Now, when I do those kind of things, I'm not building something that I would be able to tell to my 5-year-old grandson as to these are the things that make for a leader. It would not be. It would not be possible to actually have that written in my autobiography and have somebody read up in my eulogy when I'm no more. But what becomes important is that there is a marriage of integrity and intent, which is I'm intending to build the next person who's going to come after me. As a leader, I'm intentionally building my successor, intentionally building a leadership core around me of people who will be able to take the organization further. If there was anything good that came out of COVID, it was the understanding of the brevity of life. So I've spoken to capability, I've spoken to integrity and intent. The fourth element, which happens to be the second in the area of competence, is results. What's my track record? So when people are looking into what they are taught versus what they catch, what can be caught, they will be weighing up those elements. What is it that is shown at a competence level in terms of my capabilities and my results? What is showing up in terms of my character, in terms of my integrity, my truthfulness, my consistency, my congruence in what I say, and my intent in building? Equipping is a core responsibility of any leader. And if we're looking at human capital optimization, we need to be spending more time equipping others to do what we do and do better. Well, interestingly, the starting point has got to be at a relational level. I've got to be able to care about the other, so much so that I would want to be able to have them see that they are seen. As a nation, we put something we called Batupili, which was in itself a acknowledgement that we're wanting to be able to prioritize people. So if I look at what are some of the key skills that we're needing to be able to have, what are some of the things that as leaders we're needing to be able to engage on, I would want for you to be able to visualize a triangle. At the base of the triangle is a word called pathos, which is empathy. And the next level is something called ethos, which is ethics. And right at the peak of that is the word logos, which is logic. And I want to believe that we would go much further when we begin everything with empathy and then say, is this the right thing to do, regardless of who's watching? It's not about whether it's good or bad, but it's about whether it's right or wrong. Therefore, whistleblowing would be something that we are appreciating and celebrating. We make people at ease to say, if this were my enterprise, if I were the owner of this and we turned it into my personal company, I would make sure these are the right things that everybody who is with me is doing. I would want them to be able to do this. And then right at the top of that, say, it's logical that we should be able to do this thing. Therefore, others need to be able to see the sense and the meaning behind this and run with it. The tendency is that we go through the strategy workshops. We have a 5-year plan, and we present through to the community that is closest to us, which would be our, municipal council. And we members of the municipal council. And then we take it through to the operational people, and we take it to them in the logical sense of the APP. But when we're talking to that, without having gone to the base to say, does this thing make sense? Is it the right thing for the people at a local level? We're actually talking past people and acting on things that are not necessary, which is why often we end up with white elephants. We've got things that we're doing that are good for our ego as leaders, but irrelevant to the people on the ground. Human beings will only live longer where there is hope. We can go for a few minutes without oxygen, few minutes. We can go for a few minutes without food. People go through 40 days and 40 nights without eating, and it's okay. And they're dealing with that. They're dealing with toxins, and they're getting their spiritual upliftment, but they really cannot live without hope. And I believe that it is only when we are hopeful that we are able to help others to see there's reason to rise up in the morning. Of course, there is an attribution of the quotation to Napoleon Bonaparte that says, leaders are dealers in hope. And if I am not a dealer in hope, I have ceased to be a leader. And I believe that my task is to be able to see the glass always being half full with the capacity of being full. That's where I'm at.